就这个样子就好了嘛。然后，但是我是想去看这一边的东西，它这边是直播这一边的东西。
你应该是录这边的吧？这样我们也可以。
对。
是录这边的。
所以应该怎么做？
你要选一个 source 啊。加display 吧 ，display can 是 display 吗？然后选语言，你没有吗？Windows。
我们的 domain 都被浪费掉了。对吗？没几个在旧的在里头。那个现在停止购买。
你现在是？
哦，不对，好像的确是在这一边，只不过是它收出来的东西没有这个东西。
你是镜像是吧？不是啊。你能不能移过来这边？
这样子。
移得过来。移不移得过来？你打开你 system 的那个 display。
哦。
看一下窗。哦，你好像是。
好像是这边 frozen 掉了。
好像是 airplay。
对。所以。
应该是搞成。不是 mute 是 extend 的那个。你打开那个。
我先冒险，然后是。然后是用哪个东西来着？
然后你打开 display 的那个式子，看一下你能不能勾掉那个面。
这个对吧？
把这个镜像去掉。
是不是这样子接？
标杆你记得怎么弄吗？
做什么？
弄那个扩展。
是要从那软件吗？扩展。
记得不用。就是它当成第二个显示器嘛。
不是，我这个是 MacBook
啊。
是 HDMI 是吧
？HDMI 对。
有了。
还有啦。
这里要开。
哦。
它很奇怪，它那边能识别到让这边还有不同的输入源。
但这边好像抖得很厉害。
无线循环。哦，递归炮战。你在干什么？
等一下，想想啊。
会有这种吗？不会啊。你照镜子，拿着镜子照镜子，你的眼睛会爆，你的大脑会爆掉吗？不会，
镜子会爆掉。
没有，我想知道现在YouTube上面有吗？还是？
是会爆掉。
我的 setting 应该是 set 到了 YouTube 那一边。
怎么了？
没有，就是我，我现在的那个 setting 的那个 stream 是去到我们那个 YouTube 的那个账号的，这是 OK 的。然后，但是我不知道他那边看到些什么东西。
你有开始 live 了吗？
理论上是，因为我已经连了 YouTube 那边，然后 start 了 stream。
那么，
是吧？
你看时间开放就是你这个屏幕。
这边这个。什么？
你今天讲的是
不对，那只是一部分。
No, mobile as well. Mobile usually mobile we only target.
啊？
Of course, desktop.
哦，
there will target on
这个
没有，它显示是这一部分，但是我想弄到这里来，它显示只是这一部分。
哦，你可以调这个，这个东西是可以拉的，这个框是可以拉的。哎，
拿个 window， 这是什么了？
不知道。
哇靠，那么卡！你其实可以把整个屏幕投过去就行了。没有啊，我看到的不是，我看到的是全部啊。
你看，
啊，是一部分。
删掉再重新加。绿幕。
加一个，直接加一个 window 是吧 ？display 啊。
不知道哎，试一下呗。没有，那就是另外一个了 window 了。
嗯，怎么会没有呢？不可能啊！
你可以先停着录制吗？
你的主题是什么？
这主题是一个很奇怪的东西，你稍等一下。
对 ，TVC 啊。可以看片。可以啊。好的。
中间那个单词是什么？
可以吗？Testing testing 1 2 3 4。哎，你那个地方是显示不全吗？还是？
它只是一个卡片而已，它不是一个封面图。
如果
为什么这个好像跟你刚刚发的东西好像不太一样？
如果出来的话会怎么样子？
可以啊，你就最大化了。
啊？没有，但它没有显示全。
出来，因为你那里没有显示全。
哦。是因为那个分辨率的问题吗？不知道。
是不是好了？
没有。
Unreachable 是因为
另外一个
你把 IP 发我一下。
随便 scale 一个应该都可以。哎，好像好了一点点。
作用
好了一点点。
在
你刚才看到什么东西啊？那知道。
这边的封面里。
哦，所以。
要 get 的。把它扛过来。
OK。哦，你刚调是这个。如果是这个的话，就
可以了，它只能显示这么一块。
OK， 所以要小一点，对吧？小的话
720呗。
720是最小的，对吧？
觉得好像到了极限了。
好像已经 OK 了。
不是很完美，但是
OK 啊，只是我这个地方显示不了而已啊。
不知道是什么原因，我也不知道。
你现在那边可以吗？我这边。
效果还可以啊。你要看我们这个。
他想啊，如果这个东西如果我打开的话，那你看是什么样子？好像还好。是这样。那我不管。那是这个样子了。主要讲 PPT， 我最后一段我才会开始用 coding。And I need to test the audio. Can you guys hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you guys hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. Yeah, so audio is good, okay. So just need to wait everyone's on board. So just so you know that this channel is still live. And please let me know when I can start. Okay. Hello? Alright, without further postponement, and today I'm going to talk about a topic which is kind of like not very technical. Well, some sort of technical, but you'll see. The topic's name is Programming Linguistic Relativity. So, I guess, first of all, in case you wonder, this is called the TAKAHASHI method. What is TAKAHASHI method? It is for a very interesting presentation way that it uses really bold, really big, huge fonts and to present your idea without a lot of graphics. In contrary to the normal presentation where you have a lot of graphics. But the good thing about this, one, your preparation for the slides is minimal because you only need to prepare for the text. And second, I forgot what my second point is. But yeah, the second point is it allows the audience to concentrate on the exact idea that you want to express. So definitely worth a try. If you guys want to have a presentation but you don't actually have a lot of artistic skills like me. So What is programming linguistic relativity? This is I heard actually some of the colleagues said that they might not know the second word of this phrase, but linguistic basically the adjective of language. But usually people don't really talk about this phrase much. People talk about linguistic relativity. What's linguistic relativity? Actually, there are two main phrases in the linguistic world. One is called the linguistic relativity. Another one is called linguistic determinism. What does it mean? It means the language you speak will influence how you think, or the language you speak will determines how you think. And actually, people don't talk about linguistic determinism anymore because it is too absolute. And they tend to say the linguistic relativity because this is actually you can see the impact of this phrase everywhere. So let me give you an example. Pop quiz. What are the names of these colors? And I will use the examples in Guangzhou office to give to see like what do you think? You understand? How do you oh actually not in English, in Chinese, in your mother tongue, when people are asking you the question, what are the names of these colors, what will you respond to? 天蓝色. Okay, so the blue that depicts the color of the sky. Okay, and the second color? Deep blue, 深蓝色. But to you, or actually, if I don't ask you to distinguish these just two, those are just blue for you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what about the third one?
宝宝绿，
青色. I don't actually know what is the word in English, but let me just pass. So for Chinese speaker, usually they will say like the first one is the blue one, the second 蓝色, the second one is also blue, and the third one they might need to think a while before they can answer, right? So, well, actually my wife called it Tiffany blue, but that's another story. So for English speakers, usually they have very similar response as Chinese speakers. They usually say like the first one is the blue, the second one is blue. The third one, if you are into web design, usually they call this turquoise or something like that. I'm not really sure. But for Russian speakers, actually these two colors are kind of different in their language. I have no idea how to pronounce these words, but well, I guess Alex or Sergey can give us some demo on how to pronounce these words. But my point is they do have different names for these colors. So what are the consequences? The consequences are Russian speakers, native speakers, they have better ability on the color discrimination because they can, in their language, they have the built-in ability to distinguish the difference between these two colors, so they can discriminate the colors very easily. Okay, so this is my point. The language you use will limit how you can think and what you can do. Is it a bad thing? Not really. Let me give you an example. A tribe. I was mentioning there's a very funny story. There was a tribe, and their language do not have the concept of left or right. It's very difficult to imagine that, right? Because as you can properly demonstrate, like this is your left hand, this is your right hand. You can hardly imagine there's some kind of people who doesn't have this kind of concept. So usually people, if you're saying something like, hey, an ant is walking on your left leg, they cannot express this concept. Instead, they have to say, hey, an ant is walking on the leg that points to the northeast. But even they have this kind of shortcoming, and they have developed ability that other people cannot do. They have the superpower to know the direction anytime, even if they close their eyes. So, assuming that anyone in that tribe, even if you're standing in a place of nowhere, and they can still correctly distinguish like what is the direction. This is well, I guess it's almost impossible for normal people, and not to mention women. And so, if we apply this kind of if you apply this kind of concept from normal the natural language to programming language, actually you can see this kind of impact as well. So, take for example, in a pure functional programming language, you can only compute, you cannot even mutate. This is a very similar analogy to what we just said. You don't actually have the ability to distinguish left or right. You only have other ways to do this. So what does it give you if you need to do the programming in this kind of language, right? So the thing is, you don't write iteration, you write recursions, and the compiler translates that into iterations. So pop quiz number 2. How many of you have programming in a pure functional language before? Yeah. You cannot do any assignment. You can only like to take a functions and call it and then to compute and so on and so forth. So have you programming in Lisp, Scheme, Haskell, this kind of programming languages? No. Well, so actually, for functional programming language like this, and usually the compiler will have although it limits you on how to express your idea, but the limitation also gives the power to the compiler that they can do optimization where they cannot if you're using a non-pure programming language. Actually, this has nothing to do with functional. This just has to do with pure but usually because if you're using a concept of pureness, it's always about the functional programming language. So pure we talk about in that way. So not only that, but there are also other things, other concepts that are usually brought up when you're using a pure functional programming language. The tail call optimization, the lazy evaluation, and the immutability. So anyone heard of immutability before? I think anyone used React before? React.js? And so Yuan-san, you mentioned the immutability, right? So have you used the immutability.js? Not actually used in production, but you use it yourself. Okay, right. So immutability has a lot of good deeds. So first of all, because you cannot change a variable, it is born thread safe. And second of all, if you need to clone an object, you don't need to do a lot of things. You just need to clone the pointer because you know that by sharing the pointer, you are pointing to exactly the same object. And also, because, for example, if you need to have a hash table that you store a couple of different immutable objects, and then it is very easy to do the equality check. This is also very important in the React.js. Remember, in React.js, in Immutability.js, if you have two immutable objects, when you do comparison, you use 3 equal marks. You don't use 2 equal marks. You're comparing the reference directly. You don't actually compare the value. So this gives you really fast equality check in the Immutable.js, which is why it is very important for this point, because when you are doing the what's that called, the virtual DOM concept in the React.js, right? So it's very important that you know if a DOM element has been modified or not. So if you can just use a reference equal instead of like checking the object every elements under the DOM object, then it will be much faster. So you know immediately whether this DOM is dirty, then you need to update it. How does that work? So imagine originally you have the DOM tree as the blue one, right? And then you need to change some of the value. For example, you change the value, you change the value of the third blue node. And then you don't actually need to create a new thing. What you need to do is just to create another root of the node, and then to reuse the nodes that are unchanged during this operation. And then to point to the, and then for the new nodes, you just need to create the differences. So in this case, you have two objects, and those objects might have different values in some of its child nodes, but you don't need to keep exactly two copies, because some of them are shared. So in this case, it is much faster, and it saves memory. And having said that, I just say that if you have a limitation of your language, it might not be a very bad thing. So, for example, just now I mentioned a couple of examples in the functional programming language. It gives you a lot of new concepts and new idea on how to do the programming. But what I want to stress here is it's very important to know what is its limitation. So another pop quiz. Anyone has programmed in BASIC before? BASIC as the very first language that I don't know, Bill Gates played with, or did he invent it? I cannot remember exactly. And those, it is the language that you have to write like 910 and then blah 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 920 blah blah blah. You need to mention the line number for each of the programming. And if you remember correctly, actually, I think there's no for loop in this language. If you don't have for loop, how do you do recursion? Or I mean, how do you do this kind of iteration? Sorry? Use parameter? How do you use parameter?
这是一个方法，解释看看它阐述是不是这例柜嘛？
So you're using recursion to do iteration, right? So that's one way to do it. Actually, during those old days, people use GOTO. How does it mean? So you have a no, it's not assembly language. You mean I mean so I have a variable defined in the line 10, and then I do all the kind of stuff, and then to the line 100, I say go to 10. And then it will just do it again. Yeah, but this is very similar to the assembly language where you can use jump, right? So you can, I mean, in assembly language, you can say jump if the register Z is 0, or jump if the register Z is not 0. Yeah. So there's always a way in a programming language that you can do this kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that this is a good practice. So if you're standing in the 21st century and look back to those programming languages, you know, those are legacy, those are history. Those are not something that we are very proud of. In fact, those are the spaghetti code that we call at the very beginning. Those are the definition of spaghetti code. So this is the takeaway of this issue. If a man is holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you are so familiar with the programming language that you're comfortable with, you are prompt to use those kind of mindset, those kind of things to solve whatever challenges that you're facing with. And also you fail to appreciate the tools that are available in other programming languages, which is why this is very, very common in the programming world, because there are a lot of, not only the IDEs, but also programming language. This is something that people are discussing, people are battling with each other every day. Like PHP is the best programming language of the world, and blah, 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 this kind of thing. So I'll give you another example. And this time, I'm using JavaScript and GoLang, which are actually the two most commonly used programming language in our projects. What does it mean by async in JavaScript and GoLang? maybe I didn't make this clear. So what is the most common tools in order to achieve async in JavaScript? Sorry? What is the most common tool in JavaScript that we use to do some sort of async stuff?
asynchronous 就是 network request。
Yeah, those kind of thing. So, or maybe let me rephrase my question. Like, what are the concepts that we use when we mention async operation in JavaScript?
We need to wait for
Like concepts, like callbacks or those kind of things.
callback.
Do you use promise a lot?
Promise.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, we use a lot of promises in JavaScript. Well, it's kind of like it's not a new thing, but it's kind of like a very normal thing we use in JavaScript. In GoLang, we usually use channel, and if I rephrase a little bit, there's more than promises in JavaScript, because JavaScript, especially lately, we have a lot of choices. In addition to promise, and we have. So I just learned that we kind of been disconnected for a while. Just wonder if this is still the case, and where should I resume? Okay, sure. So just now I talked about 4 very important concepts in JavaScript that are related to async. Actually, if we talk about async, the first thing in JavaScript should be event, but I deliberately omitted because I'm not really sure like how to explain that. But even for that, stream is actually based on event. So if you look at the implementation of stream, then you will see a lot of like event, emit, and broadcast, those kind of things. So what was I doing? So so this is my point. For most of the cases, I think the first instinct for a JavaScript programmer is that they will use promise to do this kind of async thing, to organize their code, at least. And you have my condolences if you're still using callbacks only. And unfortunately, my slides end here because I don't actually prepare the rest of it. But I do prepare a code pack for demonstrating like what do you do for given a very simple programming problem. If you are a JavaScript programmer, or if you're a GoLang programmer. And so in order to demonstrate this kind of thing, I actually consult the opinion of Cordials and Sergey. So please give them a round hand, and because those codes cannot be done without them. But I also want you to get to know that if there's anything wrong with this code, please blame them. I'm not really sure how to. Okay. Where am I? Okay, so let's first look at the JavaScript one. So first of all, let me briefly talk about the problem itself. It's a very simple problem. The problem is, just one sec. Sorry, let's see. So the problem is, first of all, you're giving a list of URLs that you need to retrieve from. And the URL is, sorry, it's not here. The URL list is in list form here. What's that called? Data? Nope. It's hard to see here. Well, now let me just do. Okay, this is so much better. So here I just give like 3 examples of the URLs. In fact, you can add more. So this is a list of the URLs that we want to get. And then what we do next is where's my mouse? Okay, so what we do next is we need to retrieve the content of all those web pages, and then to count the sum of the character counts. It's a very simple task, right? So if you're a JavaScript programmer, this is what we will do normally. I mean, first of all, you will load the configuration, and then since this will give you a, I think this will just give you the content of the file, and then you do it to string. You split it into a number of the URLs. You filter it and just to ignore those comments, and then you wrap everything up as a promise, and then to leave it to the next function. And in the next function, maybe you will. So you got the URLs, and what you will do is to call the request promise, which is basically the promise version of the request, where you will just send the URL and then get back the content of the HTML, and then this will give you a promise, and do a promise or, which basically means you wrap everything up into a big promise, and this promise is resolved only when all the promises are resolved. And later, and you will you get the promise, and then you can it actually consists of an array of strings, where you can just do a sum of the length of all the body, and then you bring it up. So this is the util function. And the reason I extract those kind of concepts in a separate file, because as you can see, it's okay. Let me know when it continues. 我那边停止上传那么严重？
只看一个。
我那边还是没有写 stop 上传 ，OK 吗 ？Where was I? Just go on. Okay, cool. So the reason I extract all this kind of concept in the utils.js is because later you will see that it's actually, no matter if you're using a promise, or if you're using a generator, or if you're using async, those syntax are very, very similar. Which is why, one of the reasons why I seriously recommend you guys to move to ES7 if you have if you can do that. If you're using promise, what you do is just to have a promise, and then to just to throw in your next handler for the promise, and all the way. So this is the chain writing style of writing the promises. Generator. First of all, you need to use the coroutine written by TJ, right? And then but it's very the syntax is very similar. What you need to do is just to create a generator and let the coroutine to do the auto yielding. And since we have ES7, the syntax is much more neater. So what you need to do is you don't actually need to use coroutine because it is now kind of built in VA already. So you just need to replace the yield and remove the code, and then to use await instead. So if you are coming from the promise background, and it's very, very easy to rewrite your code into the async way. And this is very good stuff because this kind of async away stuff have been available in other programming languages for a really, really long time. Actually, if you're using other programming language and those people are kind of like mocking JavaScript, like why on earth you guys are only reach it now, this kind of stuff. But again, this is good stuff because you can write async code in a very similar way when you write synchronized code. But if you think about the process that you tackle this problem, because in JavaScript everything is like you want to use promise to do all these kind of things, and you kind of forgot the one of the things in this problem, that is when you are retrieving the data from a URL, there are actually, because that's an I/O process, it can be taking very long, it can be taking very short, and those I/O time actually should not be occupying the main thread of the main process of the JavaScript, which is, well, of course, this is why we use async at the very beginning, right? So the thing is, if you look back to the utils and you see this, it's not actually necessary, because once you get the body of the HTTP request, you can continue to serve the next one. You don't actually need to wait until all the purposes are done. But the thing is, to write in promise is so convenient for JavaScript programmer. So because it also looks very neat. I give you another example, which is using a different way, that is using stream. Although stream is sort of like stream is also very popular, but I guess not as popular as promise. So this is how we write if we are using stream. The idea is the format is very similar to the promise one, except that it's not except that. Here we're using pipe, in the promise we're using then. And then for this case, whenever there's a result from the upper stream, it will do the job and then to push to the next stream automatically. So it doesn't wait until all the stuff finish in the stream before it goes on. So this is the main difference, and this is actually more logical. It's more logical to do that, but the code, at least for me, it doesn't look as neat as the promise version. However, the same idea can be implemented in the Go in a very neat way. It's not very neat, but actually, if you look at the GoLang code, usually they're very long compared to JavaScript. But channel is almost like the only way or the default way that a GoLang programmer will do this kind of stuff. So you can also see those kind of function names here as well. The load URL from configuration, get the body from multiple URL, and then to sum up the character counts. But this time, everything is like a channel, just like the concept of stream in JavaScript as well. Whenever you process something, you finish it, and then you grab it from a channel, and then you push it to the next channel, just like streams. So for this kind of, I haven't actually do a benchmark for this kind of programming, but I just wanted to demonstrate the point that for this kind of programming problem, it will be more logical to write it into a stream/channel way rather than the promise way. But the promise way looks much more user-friendly in JavaScript. So that's basically the end of my my presentation, and the takeaway is like I know like for everyone, just like the natural language, everyone has his mother tongue, everyone has a language that they are comfortable with, but don't hesitate to learn other philosophy from other languages as well, and don't hesitate to try to think about like if there is other way to solve a particular problem compared to the normal way in your programming language, because sometimes even if you don't realize that sometimes it is the programming language you use limits how you can think, how you can tackle this problem. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'll open the floor on the YouTube or the Slack, just in case there are any questions.
不可以。
这个看得懂吗？
原来不会不是我的错，因为我只会 JS。